Hello, 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 and we're live again. Welcome to Innovation Culture Coding Live, which is the show where I support independent coaches and consultants to deconstruct a live case in a live environment, which we stream to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So it's all about really how do we innovate this world and how do we solve bigger problems and really getting people together and letting people shine. My name is Heitland, and I am the host of this show. So, welcome to this show. It's all going to be live. There's no, no cutting on the live show. Before we go into our guest and what we're doing today, a little shout out to our sponsor of the show. So, the sponsor of the show, I just see that you have a logo in the middle. Let's take that out. The sponsor of the show today is the College of the Extraordinary Experience. It's literally an experience conference, which I highly recommend everyone to look at. It's one of the amazing topics. I have been one of the amazing conferences where you meet people from all around the world, focusing on experience and how do we build incredible, extraordinary experiences. So highly recommend to get there and have a look at our show pages, which is heitlandinnovation.com. I'm just building up the banner. heitlandinnovation.com/innovation culture coding. You will find, of course, the sponsor, but as well everything about this show. All the different people and guests on this show have a different profile, have already a page, and as well the guest who will join me today has already a page, and you can find him, click him, and get in contact with him. But before I introduce the guest today, let's have a look at the theme. The theme is sustainable innovation. How to build an innovation program to accelerate, that's the German English, accelerate sustainable change. So welcome Mladen Panov to the show. Hey Mladen, how are you doing?
Hi Jens, thanks. I'm doing great and very happy to be here.
Great to have you. Really looking forward. And it's always great to have someone who is German speaking as well on the show, and it's even harder than to stick to English.
Yeah, we're gonna mix both our language, I guess.
Yeah, let's see. Maybe one day we need to do something in German together.
Yeah.
I've never done any show or recording in German, so maybe it's the first time together with you. So before we go into the case, let's get you introduced. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'm originally from Bulgaria. Have been living for the last 15 years here in Cologne. Came here for the studies, and I have more or less a classical entrepreneur background. Started my first startup company in the university with two colleagues of mine. And we also failed it miserably. But thanks to this first endeavor, we learned the concept of lean startup, which is a methodology, or more to say a philosophy, how founders in the early phases can validate their business idea without going into much risk, and on and on and on. It's a very customer-centric approach. And so we got to know this concept within our first company, and then we have been using it ever since to coach others. And especially later on in the game, we started coaching corporate innovation teams. That was back in 2013, with the Deutsche Telekom being our first client. And then we continued working with different major corporations from Germany, also with mid-sized companies. Till date, we have done more than more than 500 teams, more than 1,000 innovators who run within our program. And basically, last year was a very, very important one for our company because due to we see it every day in the news, people talking about social and also ecological crisis. we just decided that we have to change the purpose of our company. Beforehand, we were just doing everything in the realm of innovation. It doesn't matter what kind of project it was. And last year, we decided that we're going to focus on impact innovation, like future oriented, or how my co-founder likes to put it, grandchildren friendly innovation.
I love that.
Yeah, it's important for us. I mean, like, I'm a dad of two small kids, 2
Yeah.
and 4. And at some point I realized, wow, okay, in what kind of world are those kids going to grow up, or even their kids, right?
Yeah.
There was a time where I was like very, very afraid of what's going on. Yeah. And that's why at some point I just decided, okay, it's where I want to go and what I want to do. So we are using basically the knowledge that we have from the innovation field, and then we focus it on in the context of sustainability.
Yeah. That's great, because I think that's one of the big issues we have in this world for corporations to get into. How do we build a more sustainable world?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think a lot about big giant corporations, and I have a huge respect because they have made it okay for, compared to the digital businesses, maybe a little bit longer time. Yeah, some of them are founded late 19th centuries, or more than 100 years. For more than 100 years, they have been existing, and they have created an organization which holds more than, I don't know, 200,000-300,000 people, and it's organized. It has its structure, so it's something that I have a really huge respect for. But I can also imagine those organizations would like to thrive also for the next 100 years. And it's very important to meet the right decisions today and work on the right projects, so you have this future and you have this potential.
Yeah, love that. And I think it's really important to support these bigger organizations to get into that direction, really help them to understand how they can utilize their power getting into that direction.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we want to go. So basically what we see currently is a lot of organizations are switching the mindset. A lot of organizations are going into sustainability, more or less with their own pace. What I also see currently is that it's a lot of this is like based in the strategy of the company. So, or in other words, what they do is they do a lot of strategy currently. They do a lot of CO2 or footprint evaluations. But my experience, the conversations that I had with leaders from such organizations in the last couple of weeks and months, show me that organizations clearly lack the part of execution.
Yeah.
So doing the strategy, long term, short term, whatsoever is good, but at some point the big leverage comes from executing, and this is a thing that from my point of view, clearly is missing, and that's what we want to tackle.
Yeah, super. And that gives us as well a possibility to go into today's case. So, as everyone knows who is watching this live, and as well later on in the recording, we are always deconstructing a case, and we have looked into a case that fits very well to Mladen and what he and his colleagues are doing. So it's an international organization, and this international organization is working inside the energy sector. They have launched a new sustainability strategy, like a global sustainability strategy throughout their whole company portfolio in all parts of their organization. And the supervisory board, after a year of launching it, is not really satisfied at how the strategy is implemented, and specifically the sustainability activities reach all the market and are visible and experienceable for their customers. So the responsible manager for the rollout and for the implementation of that strategy is reaching out to Mladen and says, hey, Mladen, we need help. We need getting more practical. We need to innovate ourselves in a different way. So that's the case we are deconstructing today. So if we take this as a starting point, Mladen, how do you start with? That's like literally you'd get the phone call. They say, we take you. How do you go about helping them?
Yeah. Well, in this case, to be a little bit more precise, this was an introduction. So a common colleague or friend introduced us to each other. And basically, the first thing that I do with potential clients is always to listen to their story, right? So what is the current situation they're in? What's the status quo? What goals do they have? What milestones have they set up, if any? And then what are things that hold them from achieving the goals? And then we go very much into the detail, especially now in our case, we talk obviously about the context of sustainability, what kind of sustainability goals they have, what are milestones, what projects do they initiate in order to achieve those? And then we, within the conversation, I can like get some signals where it hurts, where stuff is not working as it should be, and then here is where I will put my fingers on and will start, making their life uncomfortable. But this is very important just to understand, okay, where are the problems, so then we can see, okay, what's the best solution.
Yeah. So if I understand you right, it's really like you sit together with them, you try to understand of what's going on, what's not working. Really, it's like not just surface, because not everyone is comfortable. And at least in my experience, hey, this is not working, that is not working, and maybe they have already opinions of what is not working and why it's not working.
Sure. Yeah, I have their story. I have their view and perspective. If it's objective or not, I cannot really really assess. But maybe to get more specific for this concrete for this case that we're using, basically within the conversation, very early in the conversation, they told me, okay, we have the goal as a sustainability department to initiate projects to introduce methodologies how we can decrease CO2 emissions in the different departments. And our goal is actually to reach out to the different departments, and we can basically, it's an energy company, so they have a lot of carbon, they have a good carbon imprint. Then their goal of the sustainability department is basically to reach out to different departments and initiate conversations with them, start to figure out how can the different departments reduce any possible amount of CO2 emissions. And this is something that is very difficult for them because on the one side, it's a relative young department. On the other side, there are many different divisions which operate under different circumstances, with different rules, with different cultures sometimes. And it's kind of difficult for them to connect on the first side. And in the second step, it's difficult to initialize such projects. They don't know how to start, what exactly to do, how to define ideas, how to brainstorm ideas that will serve the goal. And then later on also go into the in-depth execution of those ideas.
So when you have started understanding these pain points, understanding what's not working, how do you take them into this next like phase of, okay, now you have a lot of understanding of what's not working, but how do you get them towards, okay, your strategy says this, how do you operationalize that and get it into a direction?
Yeah. Well, that's here is where we use our product, or let's call it service, the Impact Kickbox. And the Impact Kickbox is a structured approach that helps teams with an idea to execute this idea within 3 months. So basically, within 3 months, they come from nothing, from air, to something, to a prototype, to a concept that has been tested with potential users and customers. And what we actually do is we have a look at the strategy, we have a look at the goals of the strategy, milestones, and then we will define a campaign. We will say, okay, so we have a problem, like in this case, we want to reduce the CO2 emissions in a particular department. And then we give the employees in these departments, we give the people the opportunity to come up with ideas. So it's an open innovation approach.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of ideas which are bunkered, but people just don't get the time, don't get the opportunity for various reasons to work on those ideas. So suddenly the organization comes up with a possibility for them to work on their own ideas, and on the same time, the organization uses those ideas to achieve its goals. And there are some really nice hidden gems within the company.
So you take, so do you do that in a workshop format, or how do you do that in more details?
How the Kickbox works?
Yeah.
How the approach works? Well, it's a 3-month program. And within this program, the participants, it's like an MBA for innovation that only takes like 3 months. It has a specific curriculum. There are specific materials and tools that are being used within the program. There is also a coaching. So all the participants that run through the program will have a coach assigned to help them stay on track and move on. The participation is almost every time hard for the participants because it's a completely new world for them. Like, just to give an example, we had a innovation program with a procurement department. So for them, this was like another universe. And it's getting difficult for them to go through the whole program. So the coach helps. And there are also other things. For example, what's a fun fact about the program is that every team will get a credit card with a small budget. So the program will require them to do some specific things. For example, let's get really specific here. We had a team the team that developed an IoT powered beehive. And the problem that they're solving was that bees are dying for various reasons, and they wanted to help the beekeepers know what's going on in their beehive and potentially help them make the right decisions on the right time so they can save their colonies. And within the Kickbox, you start out of an idea. You don't have anything. You just have this vision.
Yeah.
And there are certain methodologies that help them to test this idea before they have to really build a beehive or go into production, which is very expensive and can be very risky because after all, most of the ideas fail because there is no market demand for them. It was a good idea, but it's a fail. And the credit card that's in the box or within the program helps them do this. And we will have a kickoff meeting where we will have like a workshop type of thing. We will give them what they need in order to run through the program. Then they will have the 3 months. And then at the end of the program, we have a Dragon's Den or a Shark Tank like event where they will pitch in front of decision makers. So it's, let's call it a classical incubation entrepreneurship program.
Yeah. So what I like about that, you're literally educating the team, and while educating them, you're directly utilizing their knowledge and focusing on the strategic problem the organization has. So it's not like, hey, we just do an educational program and you're smarter after that. you know how to innovate, and you know how to work with an entrepreneurial mindset. You really try to solve problems for the organization directly in utilizing that kickbox, if I understand you right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I love about this program is because it's a mix. On the one side, you have the educational aspect, which is also very transformational aspect. People
Mm.
change within the program. We use the state-of-the-art methodologies and so on, which every agile organization would like to have. So we have transformation on the one side, and then on the other, we have very hands-on innovation. Yeah, that serves the strategy of the company.
Yeah. Do you have then a group size? You say it's like it should not be bigger than this or not smaller than that.
Well, yeah. So basically, we can have in the program solo participants. Like for
Mm.
example, you have an idea and you apply with it. You get in the program and you run it by yourself.
Mm.
But you can also say, okay, I would like to have also one or two colleagues together with me. So we share this journey together. We support each other. So you have the opportunity of a solo ride or team ride.
Mm.
Whereas the team ride is reduced to up to 3 participants.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, more people will discuss more, will talk more, will work hands-on less, and this decrease the speed.
Yeah. That's cool. I thought it's like, yeah, you need to have at least 20 people, but it's literally fairly small, so that you can do that with the whole department, but everyone is really working in a very, very small cohort.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool.
So you can imagine it as a funnel. So this
Yeah.
program works also as a funnel. So you can throw in it a lot of ideas. And then, okay, there is some commitment to it because the people who work on those ideas, they have to spend, let's say, 1 day a week within the program.
Mm.
The budget is not to mention like what the credit card, and okay, obviously they pay us to manage the whole show, but the money is like not really a problem. And then when you throw so many ideas, they run through this for months, and at the end you have even uh, even better polished gems,
Yeah.
and then you can very clearly pick different projects and invest even more and more on them. So in this way, the company will also de-risk their innovation process by
Yeah.
starting small with a lot of projects and then investing more in projects that have been already tested and show some potential.
Yeah. What is the role of the person who is like hiring you? Like in our example case, there's like the implementation manager or the person that's implementing the totality of the strategy, and is kind of trying to get that into the organization. I guess they're not like doing the things themselves inside of that test projects or inside the kickbox, but do they have a specific role inside of the ecosystem of the kickbox?
Yeah, our clear our clear partners come, or our partners come from either the innovation department,
Hmm.
because also innovation I see in some organizations is now switching towards impact, and also clearly sustainability department.
Yeah. And then they're kind of supporting that with being on the pitch, or what is their role in it?
So basically they act as an internal program manager.
Hmm.
To establish the impact kickbox program in an organization, there are some actions that need to be done. For example, we have to organize the kickoff event or the final Shark Tank like
Yeah.
demo day where the participants will pitch. So we have to find a venue, we have to, or within the company or outside, and so on. Another example is that when we have participants, the innovation management will reach out to the leader of the division where the participant comes from to get green light,
Yeah.
because one way or another, this person will have a little bit less time, or how you call it, more or less, lesser
Yeah.
time for the core job.
Yeah.
while they're within the kickbox program. So this is what they have to do. They're kind of making sure from the inside that the program works. They don't have to participate. They another important thing is that they will steer the marketing, the internal marketing of the program, so we can reach out to enough employees in the company, so enough employees who also then apply with their idea.
Yeah. If we go into like the pitch day and the pitch part, who is part of that? I guess for sure the participant, you guys, who else is part of that from an organizational perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. Those are my favorites from the whole program. I like the demo days the most because it's a really amazing event. First of all, yeah, we have us like going around, making sure everything works, facilitating also the whole event. Um, you can really think of it as a pitch competition on stage. Well, depending now on the current circumstances, also remote. But it's like a pitch competition. Then we will have a jury, and the jury is composed mainly of high-ranked employees. We will have the C-suite presented there. Sometimes the companies say, okay, we have a very important partner who is entrepreneur and whatsoever. So they will invite also external people to join the jury. Then we will have the audience. For the audience, we invite the whole company. Everybody who would like to join joins. If it's in a venue, then we'll have a seating arrangement. People will come in, will sit. We'll have streams for the whole company to be able to watch it. And yeah, we have the demo day. Then we'll have some kind of a networking event, meet and greet. And it's just like the atmosphere is what amazes me every time, because it's so open and positive, and it's like it's the energy is extremely high.
Yeah. Before we go into looking what's happening after the event, how do you prepare the individual like participants for this demo day? I guess they most probably they have never pitched something in front of such a bigger crowd, and in general they have never pitched something, or at least what I've in my experience, if you work in a corporation, that's not something you do the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. You're correct. Especially not startup wise, because they have a very specific format. They pitch for 7 minutes and have 5 minutes Q&A. So that's something that we have bothered from the startup world.
Yeah.
Not bothered, but yeah,
borrowed.
Thank you. Yeah, here we come to the language topic back.
We can switch to German in between.
Yeah. Maybe I will use the German word and then you translate me.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
Yeah, we borrowed this from the startup ecosystem. And our curriculum has a special part which prepares them how to pitch, where they see a potential structure for the pitch, what has to be in a startup pitch, then how to talk, how to basically execute the pitch on stage. And here again, we have the coach who is giving a big support.
Yeah.
So basically, our coaches are founders themselves. Many of them have already pitched on such settings, so they have their own story, they have their own examples, which is the strongest when you want to show somebody the right way, is to use your own examples and story. And this is how we prepare them.
Yeah, that's a great point. So the coaches are all experienced entrepreneurs, so they have done this before. It's not that they're students and they're just free.
Yeah. That's we have a pool of more than 100 entrepreneurs. In the meanwhile, not all of them are like coming from big or from a startup that has turned big, but all of them have made the experience of doing their own thing, or 2 or 3 things, with more or less success, and have already experienced this setting, and that's what counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it doesn't really make, or for me, it doesn't really matter if they have built an amazing, successful startup, which is like crazy unicorn thing or whatever. It's more about there's so many good entrepreneurs out there who all have experienced that, and that's the value you can bring. It's not about, hey, I have founded Facebook or whatever. It's more
Yeah,
about, hey, I've done this and I know what worked and what didn't work, and I've done so many things wrong, most probably.
yeah,
And that's the value you can give to people who have been in the corporate world. They're just not used to that world. I mean, I've
exactly.
been there.
Yeah, it's a completely different culture. It's
Yeah,
like two different worlds. And yeah, also failure. I mean, like people underestimate how important failure is.
yeah,
Sometimes maybe you learn more out of a failure than out of a project that didn't fail. Yeah. And that's also something that those guys will bring, and the experience that the participants do within the kickbox program, that sometimes they will invalidate their idea very early in the game,
mm,
and then we'll try with a second idea and they will invalidate this one as well within the frame of 3 months.
yeah,
It's very enlightening for them just to see, wow, basically I managed to fail in a short time without spending any resources. So it's kind of not really a failure. And this is the failure that we need, basically.
yeah. Love
Yeah.
that. So in the case of this company, or if we go back to our kind of semi-fictional case, so they're about they get their teams looking into how do we reduce CO2 in the different parts where they come from, and really digging into that, validating it, trying to find it out. Then they're pitching. What happens after the pitch? Is the jury saying, hey, this is a good pitch and that's a good thing, and we take it to the next level, or what's happening?
Yeah. So this is something that we prepare them for within the program.
Hmm,
Uh, in a typical startup competition, a pitch competition, you will see the startups coming on stage and saying, okay, we're here are the next milestones, what we would like to achieve.
hmm,
In order to achieve this, we need, I don't know, 500,000 K,
yeah,
500,000 euro,
yeah,
and we offer 10%. So we skipped off a 10% part because obviously the project then belongs to the company.
yeah,
Also very important, very, very interesting thing for the future ownership, but we're not there yet culturally.
yeah,
So they will come and say, okay, what are the milestones and how much resources they wish for the next period of time. Um, on purpose, we help them to define those requirements for a very short period of time after the program,
hmm,
maximum 6 months.
yeah,
So it doesn't get too long again, it doesn't get too heavy. So for the next 6 months, milestones and requirement resources that they need. This is what they pitch. And then
yeah,
the jury will then decide. We don't have first spot, second spot, third spot, best startup, not best startup. What we have is only go or no go. So
yeah,
the jury will basically say, we believe in this idea, we believe in the team. You wanted that much resources, we give you a go. Sometimes would be a go, but so we will give you, but I don't think that we will give you that much resources. Let's talk about this after the program.
hmm,
They will meet, and sometimes it's a no go because it doesn't fit. We miss this and that, and what happens with the team after the program is very individual.
hmm,
So we had the cases that some companies, some organizations released basically the innovators from their old job and gave
yeah,
them the opportunity to focus only on this project when it was extremely exciting for the company. Sometimes they will give them the money and they will stay with the 20% time frame for them to work on this project. Sometimes they will completely take it and give it to another department for execution. There are many different options
yeah.
case wise.
Yeah. How is it? So you're running the, like, you're facilitating that, you're making sure who is taking that internally to make sure that all these different initiatives are going forward, or do they hire you to support them?
Yes and no. Sometimes we coach the teams also after the program, and we'll do some other things with them, like, for example, design sprints when it comes to really building the solution. Sometimes they will do it completely internally, or they will reach out to other partners, for example, an agency which is doing software development just to start coding or producing whatever they are having as an idea, as a product. Also, this differs.
Yeah. So it's literally, if we circle back, so there's a company has a problem from a strategic direction. They want to get the sustainability strategy implemented in a deeper way and more into an action driven organization. So they hire you. You literally start with understanding what their pain points are, understanding their story, where do they come from, where they want to go, and then go from there into the kickbox literally already. I mean, you select different team members who should be part of that, the internal stakeholder that need to decide how that works and get all of that planning ready. And then you have a kickbox, utilizing your impact kickbox tool and how do you call that,
It's a
framework?
program.
Yeah, program.
Yeah.
And then you
Or
run
framework.
different teams through that program and getting them ready for this pitch day to be validating it or invalidating their ideas.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's all about working with CO2 reduction. How do you get different teams inside an organization focusing on CO2 reduction and getting it done in the best case?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what else is needed for an organization to make this happen and make it successful?
Yeah. Well, we need a backup. We need a serious backing from the high levels.
Yeah.
The best programs that we have are being backed up by the C-level,
Yeah.
where there is a person who believes in our program, who thinks that this is a good thing and can really change things in the organization, can change the organizations toward more positive development, and then they will when there are some troubles arise or when there are blockades or whatsoever, we know, or the innovation management, which is normally below this level, knows that everything is fine, they can just move on. It's also a program that, because it's different, you need some courage to do it, because you have to do different things that are unknown in the company.
Yeah.
And knowing that you have somebody who is backing you up as an innovation management or as a sustainability management is a huge help.
Yeah. If I go back into my history where I was working with, not exactly with this topics, but similar, where it's you if you do this kind of sprints and do different startups ways of working, you go into territories which are not yours. So normally you work, let's say you said, into finance, and you do something that's maybe marketing normally doing, because it's part of this program, and you need to do literally everything to figure out what's working, what's not working. So I guess they're like you say in innovation, the internal immune system of the organization is looking into, hey, why do you touch my topics? So you kind of need to support that as well with maybe a backing from the CEO or someone who is like saying, hey, these guys are allowed to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Also, we had situations where we have an extremely exciting person with an idea, and the most exciting, that's an interesting fact. That's actually easy to think of. The most exciting participants are normally the people who you would refer as high performer, right? Because those people, they just like to, they're creative. They like to put the work. They like to put the hours, and those are the ones that are mostly missed, even if they reduce their working time only by 20%. Yeah, in the division. So we had situations where we had to escalate to the top because we just wanted to have, or the innovation management really wanted to have this person, and the person also wanted to participate, but their manager, for example, was again. So we had to make like a conversation, having a very high ranked decision maker who then explain, hey, you know what, that's important for us, that's important for the company, that's important for you as well, so let us have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can so imagine that working with a lot of organizations myself is like, hey, I don't give you the best person out of my team because like we will suck, worst case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that.
I mean, like, if we start talking about this, then we go into the culture
Yeah.
of organizations and how how fitting this culture is for thriving in the context of innovation. And um, just here's just a specific example. Goals are being set every year, right? So you as a decision maker, you as a manager have your own goals, and then you need your people to be there working so you at the end achieve your goals. And then suddenly I come and say, okay, Jens, I'm gonna take your best person,
Yeah.
so write him off 20% of his time. You won't be happy, I assume.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is something that, from my point of view, has to change. Also, how do we set targets, and what is the innovation part or the innovation module in your goals?
Yeah. I like that very much because literally you are working straight away with the organization. I mean, you go very much into implementation mode, startup way of thinking, entrepreneurship, solving problems straight away. But because you do that, you create impact in the organization, and that impact is over time. And because the people are getting educated inside of that program, they're literally changing the culture automatically without doing a big change program.
Yeah, that's the thing. I
Yeah.
mean, if we think of how a startup um, is born,
Hmm.
so you have a team or you have a person with an idea, and they will sit down and start working. They won't do a strategy. They don't start with thinking, what is my purpose, what I'm here for, or values, or whatsoever. They
Hmm.
don't start with the strategy. They start with the work, and
Yeah.
then the strategy follows. And what I see, and it has its reasons in organizations, this turns around. At some point, they say, okay, why are we doing it? And it's very important also to know at some point, also a startup which is growing has to ask themselves the question, okay, why are we doing it? What is our
Yeah.
purpose?
Yeah.
So the team can then grow based on this fundament. And then the organization gets used to this approach, first doing the strategy, then putting the work. And at some point, you have an innovation blockade, a lot of ideas, a lot of maybe visions, but
Yeah.
to less execution.
I love this because I think it's a very, and I might come back to you after the live show and after the recording. I think this is a tool a lot of organizations are in need right now, where they come from a time of pressure with the pandemic and so on, and then still try to strategize their way out of a pandemic. But what you need to do to be able to change the future is getting things done right now.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I say like I'm oversimplifying this, but I think a lot of organizations, if they would invest this 3 months with a company like yours, they will speed up tremendously over years if they just get started instead of, hey, let's discuss it and plan another project for the next
Yeah.
half year and then don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yes. Well, yes and no, because on the one side, yes, if they really embrace it, yes, but sometimes we see that one or second iteration is, and for big organizations, you have been a part of one, you know that change doesn't happen from one
Yeah.
day to another. So basically, it's for the long haul.
Hmm.
And here is another problem that we have, is that they take the time they invest the time of the innovators
Hmm.
who run in the program, and the more they invest, the bigger the program, the higher the expectations, right?
Yeah,
So
true.
the decision makers would then say, okay, now we have to see here what's happening, what's coming out of the program. But this is not how innovation works. It's like a research. You
Yeah.
cannot just say, okay, I want to have the best medicine for the cure for cancer or corona now in this year, right? Okay, in
Yeah.
the case of corona, they were really quick. But you cannot just wish. It's not a wish concert.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and change also doesn't happen so quickly. So the organization have to work, and this is where we also help on the expectations coming out of such a program.
Yeah.
So they can then be willing also to invest and endure long enough so they can see then clear changes in the culture, in the way how employees behave, in the way how the whole organization behave, and also in the results of the or innovation itself coming out of the program.
Yeah. And I guess for, let's say, the now entrepreneurs who have been part of that program, they're excited. They learn something completely different. Or I guess 80% of them at least are excited, and it's like I would love to work only in that way, and then then they're going back into the normal ways of working. I guess it's also something they will get frustrated if it's not moving on,
Oh
if they
yeah.
can't do that.
Oh yeah, this is our black KPI to say,
Yeah.
our hidden KPI is how many people have left the organization after the kickbox program,
Oh yeah.
because it's like you open their eyes how they can be working, and how fun is it when you say what you want to, how like when you are the boss of your own idea, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes when they when they leave the program and they return to reality and things haven't changed a lot, for some, and this is the for the most entrepreneurial ones, it's really hard. It's really hard. We had some story also with very successful projects. Due to politics, the initial, let's call him, founder behind the program is
Hmm.
getting like kicked away. They cannot really hold the position of being like the person. It's not being done in a correct manner. It's also an invitation for them to leave the company.
Yeah.
So the organization, it's kind of, it's really stressing the organization. Like that's a that's a huge challenge, but
But I
it's
think
an important one.
it's as well. It sounds negative if someone is leaving an organization. I think it's also something positive, because if done in a well way, this person will always sell this idea and sell and tell the story that coming from that company, how important it was to learn all of that inside of that organization.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
not just something bad. It
yeah,
just some people assume it's like, hey, people are leaving, it's bad.
yeah,
But I think
yeah.
it's also normal
That's
development.
That's a great point. And basically also using this program, we have a customer who is using this program as an HR
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah.
Like when they conduct interviews, or even in the job advertising, they will say, okay, you will get within some specific formats, you get the opportunity to work on your idea, to be the boss of your own idea. And this is how they also use it as for employer branding.
Yeah. Love that. That's cool. So let's get towards the end. One of the things I'm always asking my guests is, what is your dream customer? Can you describe a little bit of your, like, the dream of the dream of the dream customer?
Yeah. Basically, this doesn't have to do with demographics. It doesn't matter how big the size is. Okay, for some companies, the kickbox is not the real solution. Let's say above couple hundred
Hmm.
employees, organization, this is the right size to employ to adopt such kind of program. And then what is our dream customer? It's just a person who is really open and willing to try things out, who is also willing to risk
Yeah.
just a little bit. It's not a lot, but just a little bit, and then see what will happen. Go out of the blue, then maybe just jump a little bit in the cold water, and then see what happens. And the rewards are huge. The rewards are huge.
Yeah. Cool. Did we miss anything, Mladen? It's always
No,
a stupid question, I know.
no, it's a good question. It's a really good question because within the interview, I was thinking I definitely have to say also this because it's
Yeah,
important. I think that we answered it meanwhile. But yeah, I've been talking so much, so I think that's enough for everybody who is viewing
yeah, that's
already.
good. So I think you gave a good understanding of what you do and how you guys are working. I really love the Impact Kickbox uh, as a program, and as well that you attach coaches who are coming from the entrepreneurship world, who have real experiences. And in the end, because I'm very much into innovation culture, and that's why I call this show as well innovation culture coding. And this is an amazing way of coding innovation culture in an organization.
Mm.
Mladen, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure having you on the show. And for everyone watching this live, the next live show will be this Thursday. Thursday comes the next live show. And if you have questions to Mladen, go over to heitlandinnovation.com/innovation culture coding. There's a page where we will feature different clips about this episode, different show notes, and as well later on the audio and the video version. So you will find everything on innovation culture coding inside of the heitlandinnovation.com/innovation culture coding. Mladen, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and looking forward to follow up after this. And of course, staying in contact and seeing how many people are reaching out, and maybe your dream client utilizing the Kickbox Impact Kickbox program in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.